So I'm a little late in making this list, but it's a topic I wanted to talk about for a while. Like any decade, the 2010s had many movies that received the awards and accolades that they deserved. Today I won't be talking about those movies. Today I'm going to be talking about what I think are the most underrated movies of the last 10 years. This means, in my opinion, they didn't receive either the critical or audience reception that they deserved. I'll be omitting any Best Picture nominees for obvious reasons, so some of the lesser seen ones that I would like to put on here, like Phantom Thread, won't count. I also won't be including films that might not have gotten a lot of awards recognition, but did very, very well within the film circles in their own right, especially for independent movies, so stuff like Blindspotting won't be included. Now, some of these movies may have been nominated for an Oscar or even won some, but I don't think they got the recognition that they deserved. I'll also be ranking these movies by the degree in which I think they're underrated, so these might not even be my favorite movies from their respective years, but I think they deserve much more recognition than they ended up getting. So let's get started. Number 10, Blade Runner 2049. Denis Villeneuve's fantastic sequel to Ridley Scott's iconic original, Blade Runner 2049 did bring in rave reviews from critics, however audiences weren't interested for some reason. It could be blamed on the runtime or lack of public interest, but this is one of the strangest sci-fi movies to ever fly under the radar in theaters. Not only is it beautifully shot and directed, the story pays respect to the original and deepens the lore of the universe with interesting new characters, and furthering the stories of the older characters. The movie even won 2 Oscars, earning Roger Deakins his first ever Oscar after several decades of snubs. And in my opinion, it is one of the best movies of its respective year, and deserved a Best Picture nomination along with its critical success. It might be doing well with its fan base and film circles since release, but its initial lack of public interest and box office disappointment is truly disappointing. Number 9, War for the Planet of the Apes. Andy Serkis returns as Caesar in the final installment of the rebooted Planet of the Apes trilogy. Matt Reeves hones his sharp directing to elevate the third movie to be the best of what is quite frankly itself an underrated trilogy. Introducing interesting dynamics between apes and the dwindling human population, War sees real-life parallels drawn in to make the story even more compelling than ever. Andy Serkis once again gives us a powerhouse performance that caused stirs amongst award shows and considering motion capture and voice acting as serious contenders in their regular awards seasons. Serkis shows that he's one of the most underrated character actors working today by not only bringing an intimidating presence, but a vulnerability to Caesar never seen before. And composer Michael Giacchino also brings one of his best scores to this movie, blending perfectly with the intense and bleak tone, and helping give a beautiful send-off to this trilogy that easily ended on a high. Number 8, Split. Unarguably, Split has been the brightest spot in writer-director M. Night Shyamalan's career in the last decade. Going back to a smaller budget and hints of horror, Split was a welcome surprise from Shyamalan. While The Visit and Glass both had some strong points, this was easily his best. Shyamalan creates an uneasy tone when 3 teenage girls are kidnapped by James McAvoy, whose character has 23 different personalities. This movie received mostly positive reviews and saw a small revitalization in Shyamalan's career, but the best part is equally McAvoy's performance. While sometimes over the top, you never doubt that he puts a massive amount of effort into creating distinguishing characteristics for each of the personalities. From intimidating and scary to charming and naive, McAvoy covers a huge spectrum of emotion throughout the film, and his screen presence is palpable in every scene. While most people agreed that McAvoy was the best part of this movie, he gained very little recognition for his performance. And I think he deserved much more recognition for being one of the most memorable villains of the last decade. Number 7, The Great Gatsby. Will there ever be a satisfying adaptation for one of the few widely proclaimed unadaptable novels? Probably not, but Baz Luhrmann brings his signature electric style to F. Scott Fitzgerald's story in a hell of an effort to do so. This iteration of The Great Gatsby was generally liked by audiences, but received middling to mixed reviews. However, I, like many people, think this movie is an entertaining, eye-catching experience, not only backed up by a stellar cast, especially with Leonardo DiCaprio and Joel Edgerton's performances. Luhrmann's taste for excessive visuals blends wonderfully with Gatsby's knack for excessive wealth and partying. This film also looks amazing, which actually helped it win Oscars for production and costume design. While the story might not be perfectly adapted, a compelling and captivating movie is still delivered. Number 6. Dangal. Now this one may come as a surprise entry to people who are familiar with Bollywood and Indian films. However, I am from the US and have noticed the general disregard for Bollywood movies amongst average moviegoers. Dangal is a sports biopic about a former professional wrestler trying to recapture glory by teaching his daughters how to wrestle and eventually get to the Olympics. Grounding the more outlandish Bollywood tropes, this movie takes a realistic approach towards familial relationships and the hardships that come with athletic training. Anchored by a career-best performance from Amir Khan and a great supporting cast, Dangal becomes an incredibly entertaining and compelling underdog story, and earns a place as possibly the best sports movie of the last decade. This movie did well critically and was immensely popular in India, but this one has been overlooked to a tremendous degree in the US. Not only is it a great movie on its own, it's also a great movie to introduce yourself to the higher quality Bollywood movies. Number 5. The Secret Life of Walter Mitty. Directed by and starring Ben Stiller, The Secret Life of Walter Mitty had a decent box office run and received mixed reviews from critics. Walter Mitty embarks on an adventure across the world to save his and his colleagues' jobs, but ends up finding meaning and purpose in his own life along the way. While the movie can sometimes be accused of being overly sentimental, that's also what it's going for. Stiller makes a beautiful looking movie that is simultaneously one of the most optimistic movies I've ever seen. He creates a positively hopeful outlook on life that is uplifting and inspiring. This is one of the few movies where its message about enjoying life is so poignantly executed that you can't help but come out in a better mood after watching it, and it deserves more recognition because of its obvious appreciation of life. Number 4, Swiss Army Man. This is one of the few movies that takes a ridiculous concept that should not work on any level and expertly executes that concept. Swiss Army Man was a surprise to most critics that actually saw it. Starring Paul Dano and Daniel Radcliffe as a corpse that has several outlandish functions, Dan Kwan and Dan Scheinert create a weirdly fun buddy movie. The main focus is on Radcliffe, who gives what is possibly his best post-Harry Potter performance. While this movie generally did well amongst critics and audiences, it never received much awards recognition and was not seen by very many people. It's a weirdly human and heartwarming movie that encapsulates you in its own world. It's widely creative and a hell of a lot of fun that everyone should experience. Number 3, A Ghost Story. David Lowery comes in with what is easily the most art-housey movie on this list, with his story about a man's ghost watching over his widow after he dies. The small budget and straightforward execution of just having Casey Affleck wear a sheet with eye holes in it while Rooney Mara ignores him works surprisingly well. This movie was well received from critics, but has received very little audience recognition since its release. Lowery creates a movie that feels incredibly intimate while exploring existence on a cosmic scale. It also tackles the themes of love, loss, legacy, and reality itself. The movie becomes incredibly introspective and takes a profound look at humanity and what prevails within it. It's not a movie for everybody, but it's an incredibly unique and different film experience. Number 2, BRAWL and Cell Block 99. Generally well received by critics and earning a very small box office, as Craig Zahler mimics his other movies by making a story that he's complete control over, but doesn't get a very wide release. BRAWL sees Vince Vaughn as Bradley Thomas, a former boxer turned drug runner who gets sent to prison and has to go through his own version of Dante's Inferno to save his wife by making sure he gets into as much trouble as possible. Vaughn delivers what is easily his best dramatic performance of his career by showing an intimidating and unhinged side of himself never seen before. Filled to the brim with fun dialogue and great supporting actors, this movie is a modern-day grindhouse film. Zahler uses his signature slow pace to develop each character and gives us some of the most realistic and brutal violence ever put to screen. Every punch, kick, and broken bone can be felt by the audience, making Bradley Thomas's journey to the ninth circle of hell a hell of a lot more captivating. Now, of course, like any list, I can't include every movie that I would love to include on this list, and I could go on and on about what movies I wish people saw more of throughout the decade, and could probably make this list top 50 or something. But for now, we're just going to keep a few honorable mentions, and these are those.
Homework.
Of school in the morning.
This is school. Rock and roll is a risk. You risk being ridiculed.
Jesus, what are you all wearing?
Yeah, we're just working that out.
That's great fun.
Yeah, it's really fun.
They won't stop me dancing, no, they won't stop me dancing. Kiss me, just kiss me Nefertiti. Just the way you like it, just the way you like it. Kiss me, lipstick, Ringo, that's the way you like it.
I want to end it. I don't want to change things, you know? I want to make some pizzas. I want to play some Paddleton. They got a whole process that they give you these pills you can take, but I don't want to do it alone, and I was hoping you would help me out.
Yeah, I'm cool. All right. Give me your left arm.
Huh?
Your left arm. Give me your left arm. This one.
No!
Yeah, come on.
No! No!
Did you cut yourself?
I'm dealing with an injury.
Right. Look, when you're talking to your doctor, just tell him you have a spiral fracture of the left radius.
No! No!
Deep breath.
No!
And number 1, T2 Trainspotting. Sequel to one of the most iconic movies to come out of the 90s, T2 Trainspotting sees the return of Renton and the rest of the gang 20 years after the events of the first movie. This made my number 1 spot because the first movie was so widely acclaimed and did very well at the box office and even received an Oscar nomination for its screenplay, while this one received middling positive reviews and had a very disappointing box office run. I find this strange because Danny Boyle does an amazing job of capturing the nostalgia for the first movie in its era, while mixing it in with the modern problems and naturally and believably developing each character. Every actor delivers once again, with Ewan McGregor masterfully returning to the character of Renton, but the surprise this time around was Ewan Bremner's performance as Spud, which put him in a much more likable light than the first movie, and made him probably the most likable character in the franchise. The movie captures the same insane energy from the first film while holding its own as an incredibly well-crafted story, which makes it truly disappointing that so few people seemed to see or appreciate this movie. Trainspotting is one of my favorite movies of all time, and I think this is a damn worthy follow-up, which is why T2 Trainspotting makes the top of my personal list. Now, what did you guys think of my list? Did you agree or disagree with any of them? I think this is a very subjective list to make. What are your favorite underrated movies of the last decade? Let me know, and I'll be back with another video.